Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sreenivasan, and I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism. I am honored to convene this daily conversation around what's happening with COVID-19, and we approach it from unusual angles. On Sunday nights, we do one special thing, which is we talk about positivity. We try to bring in positive, purposeful people who will help us think about ways in which we can prepare for the week and prepare for this difficult time. This is episode 67. That means I've been on quarantine for 67 days here in New York City. And I've learned a lot, I've laughed a lot, cried a little bit. And on Sunday nights, we want to be positive, but not unrealistically so. So right now, please tag your friends, please share, please find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn and share this. Whether you're watching us live or later, tag a friend who could use some positivity. It's Sunday night in New York, and that means we always do this show. And we have a fabulous guest for you tonight who will help you be positive, and her name is Natalie Nixon. That's right, Natalie Nixon is an author, speaker, and strategist, and her new book, The Creativity Leap. Please follow her at NatW Nixon, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And her website is figure8thinking.com. We'll ask her what that is and a whole bunch of other stuff. So please tag your friends right now. Please make sure that you share this with your friends and family and colleagues around the world. People of all ages will benefit from meeting Natalie. And this is your chance to do so. Before that, we have to pay some bills, so we want to thank our sponsors and get right to it. Our first sponsor is Sohn Social Media Solutions, SOHN socialmediasolutions.com, and their Survive with Live Video Bootcamp. Starting June 1st, launch your own consistent live stream show in just 8 weeks. Learn how to get and keep your message out there, building relationships with your customers and potential customers during a time when it's needed most. Learn how to get past the fear of going on camera, what to talk about on your live shows, the tech, how to promote your videos, and actually launch your show in a supportive community of professionals. Sign up today. And at the end of the show, you'll see a testimonial from one of the very, very happy students. So that's our big thank you to Tim Sohn of Sohn Social Media Solutions. Sohn starts with an SOHN. I also have another course that I want to tell you about, and this is a different kind of course. This is a free course with Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media for journalists, PR pros, and everyone. It's a free certification course that you can sign up for now. It launches in June, and we'd love to see you join us. People of all ages, professions, experience are welcome. And you just go to mrac.co/social. mrac.co/social, and you can sign up now. Please tell your friends, please take a screenshot of this or take a photo of it with your camera or just a screenshot and tell your friends. A free course, everybody will benefit. And my wonderful colleague, Linda Bernstein, is working on that with me. We have an appointment tomorrow to start the deep dive work into producing the videos. It's about a 2-hour certification program, and you will benefit. Everybody you'll know will benefit from that course. And I'm not saying that because it's me. I'm saying that because it's social media, and we all need help, including me, with it. So thank you so much for checking out mrac.co/social. All right, are you ready for some positivity? Are you ready for some great energy? I'm wearing my positive shirt on a positive night in New York City, despite everything that's going on and the tragedy of the world, where we are crossing so many milestones in deaths, in horrifying scenes of armed protesters rushing state capitals. We're seeing people going out without masks in America. We're seeing so many things that are terrible. We still want to be positive because we have to get through this. And we will get through this, and we'll get through it together. And you're going to get through it in part because of tonight and because of our very special guest. We want you to follow NatW Nixon on Twitter, and we're hoping she and everybody else has shared this on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. We're on all those platforms. Tag your friends there, please. And the best way to keep track of all my shows is to go right now onto YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You see the address right on the screen, youtube.com/Sreenet. youtube.com/Sreenet. Make sure you subscribe. All right, here we go. Everyone ready? We're going to bring on Natalie Nixon. Hello. Great to have you, Natalie. Where are you? There's a first question I ask everyone. Where are you? How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm in Philly, in Philadelphia, and I'm in my home office, and I'm doing really well today. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm trying to be positive. You know, one of the things that happened is my wife and kids kicked me out of my own house, our apartment here in New York, in the same building. They said, these shows of yours, you make too much racket. We can't concentrate. So I was given the boot. I was lucky that I had a friend who had an apartment that I could use and borrow for things like this. And that tells you how lucky we are. The biggest problem I have is how loud I am on Zoom calls and things like this. Exactly. So I'm very glad and very, very grateful. And that's how I approach it. How about you?
I cannot complain. I've been signing off on all of my emails to everyone to stay buoyant. And my father was infamous for always responding to the question, how are you doing, Fred? To can't complain. And that's exactly how I feel right now. We're healthy. We have our family nearby and we're employed. So we're doing fine.
That is true. And we have to also not just think about our health, but also our opportunity to make money and be employed. And you're absolutely right that I'm glad to see that that is your attitude. And the reason we wanted to talk to you tonight on All Nights is because today you are an author, but today we got in your house, you got your advanced copy. So we're going to show that of your book, The Creativity Leap. So let's hear a little bit about that and let's unveil the cover.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to your platform to share about. This is the cover of the book. I think the light's flashing it a bit, but the book is called The Creativity Leap, and the subtitle is Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work. And the premise of the book.
Sorry, 1 second, Natalie. We want you to keep holding it up because we got to get that there. We want everybody to maybe take a picture of it so they can find it. There you go. You got it. Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work. The Creativity Leap. And then you can just peek over the side a little bit, Natalie. You can just put your head on the other side. There you go. That looks nice. People can take a screenshot. I love that. Look at that. Wait, I'm going to take a screenshot of that. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we just want everyone to go to Amazon or your favorite bookstore and pre-order. It comes out in June, but she's here today to talk about the book today. Thank you.
Exactly. Well, thank you for allowing me to share. When we're talking about positivity, I think creativity is something that all of us as humans are hardwired to exercise in order to maintain positivity. The premise of the Creativity Leap is that in the future of work, and more specifically in this, what we're calling this fourth industrial revolution, creativity is a competency that we can no longer afford to ghettoize among the artist types. That's not fair to artists, and it's not beneficial to our society at large. And we can't treat it as some sort of woo-woo, frilly topic. The fourth industrial revolution, which we are living in now, the train has left the station, is characterized by ubiquitous technology. And a more dystopian view of this time is that, run for the hills, the robots will take over, which is not at all my point of view. I think the opportunity is that technology like AI, AR, VR, robotics, all those sorts of things can actually amplify what it means to be uniquely human. And in all the conversations about upskilling and reskilling, even the World Economic Forum has designated creativity as within the top 3 job skills that we need for 2020 and after. So the whole premise of my book is it's an attempt to democratize creativity and to help people understand that creativity is our ability to toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems. That's how I simply define it. And once you start understanding creativity as this ability to toggle between wonder and rigor, it means that attorneys, scientists, plumbers, farmers are incredibly creative. And this is something we really need to optimize right now.
And do you think this is something people know by instinct, or how do they find out and how do they do it?
I think we do know it when we're children. Unfortunately, sadly, it gets kind of drummed out of us in our educational system. And I speak as someone who worked in education for over 20 years. I started out, my background is in cultural anthropology and fashion. And there was a chapter of my life when I was a middle school and high school English teacher. And then after working in the fashion industry, a much longer chapter in my life where for 16 years, I was a professor. And so I saw at various tiers in education that we tended to err on a solutions orientation way of educating versus really embracing the process. And so, Sir Ken Robinson, who is one of the foremost thought leaders in creativity in the world, he's British. He, in some of his TED Talks, has remarked on these kind of experiments where you go into a kindergarten class and you ask the children, who here in the room wants to be an artist? The typical ways that we think of creativity. And 90% of the children's hands shoot up. You ask the same group of children by middle school, who here thinks they want to be an artist? It's down to about 50%. And then by senior levels of high school, it's a small minority of people who want to go in that direction. So absolutely, when we are young, or much younger, we absolutely understand that we're creative, and it comes out in play. Play is about experimentation. Play is how we actually exercise all the skills that we associate with executive leadership, such as collaboration and teaming and negotiation and active listening, right? That all has to come into play when we are playing. So we remove play to delve into the more serious side of work in education. I think that's a big loss.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you're here to share that with us. Let's do this part of the show where we do what I call a global tour. We look at who's watching around the world. Tell us where you're watching from. Just type it in. And I want to make sure while I do that, Natalie, that if you can go in and find my live video and share it. I think you talked on my link, but we want to make sure your audience is also with us. So if you wouldn't mind going into Facebook, find my live video and share that. You can do that while I do the tour, and that'll give you a little moment to do that. Jonathan's watching from Union Square in New York. He's watched 66 of these episodes, and this is episode number 67. So thank you very much. We really appreciate you, Jonathan. Look at that, he's wearing a mask. And Sonali says episode 67. Geeta's watching from Memphis, Tennessee. And Natalie, as you're listening in the background, if you want to say anything about these cities or these towns, feel free to jump in, okay? And sure. Tim is watching from northeastern Pennsylvania, and I know you know Pennsylvania really well.
I do. I'm in southeastern Pennsylvania in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia. And Tim Sohn is watching, and he says hi to Susanna, who's watching from Mexico, and Anand's watching from Andhra Pradesh in India. Have you been to India, Natalie?
I have several times. I lived in Sri Lanka, and I've been to Delhi and Mumbai several times. Love India.
Wonderful. So that is just great. And Tim is speaking here. And here's Paula Kiger, says, hello, everyone from Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you. And this is my opportunity to tell everyone that Paula Kiger is one of our fabulous producers on our show that we have on once a week in the mornings. We do something called the New York Times Read Along, where we read the New York Times out loud like crazy people. And we've been doing that for 5 years now. And we have benefited so much from doing that because we've learned so much, and we've really built a community. And in that community, we do all kinds of amazing things. And this Sunday, that means this morning, we did this episode where we talked about politics with the two gentlemen on the left, you see there, Rick Wilson and Steve Shale. And Rick is the author of 2 #1 best-selling New York Times books. The newest one is called Run Against the Devil, and the other is called Everything Trump Touches Dies. and Steve is a Democrat. Rick is a Republican who has gotten in trouble for breaking with President Trump, and Steve is a Democratic strategist, and the two of them were there. And also Kanika Monga was with us. Kanika is an MD who talked about the medical aspects of COVID-19. And why we're showing you this is that you want to go back and watch that show because of something called the Wilson effect. Rick Wilson has so many followers that we had almost 80,000 people watch that show, and they will still be watching for a long time. And that tells you something about people and their following. And that's today. So the Sunday edition, you just go onto my YouTube, you can find it all. You go onto my Twitter, you can find it all. But YouTube is the best. SreeNet is the way to go. And then next Sunday, we will have Cornelia Dean with us. She's an author and the former science editor of the New York Times. And she's going to be with us to read the New York Times, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. every Sunday morning. We read the New York Times. This show we do every day, but that show we do once a week. And so there are two different teams that do that. And I'm just very grateful to everybody for supporting us the way they do. So I think Natalie is ready. She's done her sharing, and we are now going to see her friends and family also join us. And we're so lucky to have them with us, aren't we, Natalie? So let's talk a little bit more about your work and just give you a little bit of that tour, because so many people are watching from so many different places. Sonali says, I'm a climate change lawyer and activist based in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, currently with my parents in Maryland. I think a lot of people are kind of ending up now with their families that they didn't expect to be. Some are missing their families. And Sonali just wrote an article, The Climate Change Crisis Successor to Hurricane Sandy, which of course, which devastated us. And Sonali says, thank you for this great show. Laurie's watching from Dobbs Ferry, a little further up Hudson River here in New York. And Stefan is watching and says, what an offering. He's talking about the free course we're doing. And Tim says, bring on the positivity. So let's keep going and talk about that. And we'll do that world tour as we continue. So let's take a step back, Natalie. Tell us about your, where you're from, your backstory, the origin story of Natalie Nixon. Natalie Nixon is Nat W. Nixon on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So go ahead, Natalie.
Thank you. My origin story is actually just about a mile from where I currently live now, in the Mount Airy neighborhood in Philly, in Philadelphia. I'm a Philly girl, ride or die, and Philly people, we either never leave, or if we leave, we don't come back. And there's a critical mass of us who leave and come back. And so I grew up in, I guess, a lower middle class, upper level, blue collar community in Philadelphia, in East Mount Airy. And I always kind of mark my upbringing by the three very different types of schools I attended. So I started, actually, I'll say four. So I started out in a very crunchy, granola kind of hippie nursery school, and then went into the community urban public school because my parents believed in public school education. Unfortunately, by the second or third grade, my mom was having to drill me in my multiplication tables, how to tell time. She fought to get me into the harder advanced classes. And in a school that was 90% African American, all of the students in these advanced classes were white children. And I would come home complaining that I didn't want to be in those classes. And she would ask me why. And I would say, because my friends aren't in those classes. And she'd say, well, that's why you're in those classes. My father, who worked in pharmaceutical sales, my mom was a stay-at-home mom until we were about in junior high. But my father, during his rounds, learned that if he sent his daughters to a neighboring suburban public school, which had some stronger fundamentals in academics, our family would have to pay that county taxes because we didn't live in that county. We lived in Philadelphia County. So I started at that school in the fourth grade. I was the first and only Black child in the class, and I was called the N-word about every other day for the first couple of weeks. And I sometimes gloss over that fact, but I was in an interview about a year ago, and I mentioned it just kind of fleetingly because that's what I tend to do now in my middle age. And the interviewer very empathically said, hang on, tell me more about that. And I realized that was a really pivotal time in my life because it was, unfortunately in America, it was the beginning of my consciousness in terms of, race and culture in our society, and needing to speak up for myself. My father had an incredible presence in my life at that time. He was my advocate, and he would just appear in the school at random times and have friendly conversations with the teachers, with the principals, with the parents of those particular boys. Ended up making friends with those same boys. I was pretty athletic, and sports tends to bond children. Did very well in school, and around the time of the 6th grade, my mother learned that an area prep school was giving out community scholarships. And she said, my kid can take that test. So I took the test, I did very well. And I then went to a very awesome and elitist Quaker prep school. And I went to Germantown Friends School from 7th through 12th grade. By 9th grade, my sister joined 2 years later. And by 9th grade, they said our dad was making too much money and the scholarship money kind of faded away. But I always give that context because I learned through those very different educational experiences that when I was in public school, I was really learning how to fill in the dots. I got very good at giving teachers the answers that they wanted. And it was in this incredibly privileged Quaker prep school that I got really good at asking better questions. You were rewarded for being the provocateur. And that was a learning curve for me. It wasn't something that I was good at naturally, just because the culture that I came from, you didn't question adults. You didn't challenge authority in that way. And so I really became an amazing boundary spanner because of my upbringing, because of all the different cultures and contexts that I was exposed to. And because of the pride my parents and my family gave me and who I am in my own ethnicity as an African American. So I grew up as a dancer. My mother put me into dance classes when I was 4 years old, in part because I was really clumsy, but also because she observed that as a baby, as she would be exercising, I loved to move with her. Dance was everything to me. I knew that I didn't have it in me to live to dance, that I wouldn't go on to be a professional dancer, but dance, as many arts do, it taught me really how to see, because dancers are excellent at pattern recognition. Dancers who learn choreography have to pick up patterns outside of their own bodies, incorporate it into their own, and then use their bodies to physically tell a story that has meaning and purpose. Dance taught me how to take criticism and critique. It taught me how to show up over and over again. It's very gritty. It's not pretty and prissy, even though dancers may look like that on stage. It's incredibly grimy, physical work. And it taught me incredible discipline and how to show up over and over again. That's the value of the audition process. I was just talking to my husband earlier today, a memory about being in a junior dance company and not getting into the cut for one of the first rounds of dance performance. And my first time being cut and not being admitted, I kind of went off to the corner and sulked and cried. And I was in an environment where the teacher didn't come over and coddle me. People kind of ignored me. And I quickly learned I need to not take myself so seriously, brush myself off, and just get up there and learn from others around me and try again. Dance also just taught me to be incredibly curious about other cultures, the music that you're exposed to. So while I never went on to become a professional dancer, I did dance in college. I danced a little bit afterward. I still dance to this day. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
I believe it. I believe it. Wow, you covered so many things in there, and I want to break apart and talk about some of them. But we also want to remind everyone that you have a book that you just got in the mail today, and the book is there. She is. She's holding it up. She's going to learn throughout the afternoon or throughout the show how to hold it up better and better. And she's got that there. And we also have the website on the screen. So let's talk about that. There's a beautiful website you have, and look at that book. So the website is called Figure 8 Thinking, the number 8. So first thing is, did you also do ice skating? Is that where the term comes from?
Oh, good question. So figure 8 actually refers to the iterative process of problem solving. So when we think about that movement that a figure skater does in the figure eight, it's revisiting back to that center point, building out again and coming back in. So that's one reason. And part of my background, when I started figure eight thinking, I was a professor. I had founded and co-created a strategic design MBA program. So I developed an executive MBA program that integrated design thinking into how people were learning strategy, leadership, finance, operations, and branding. And the design thinking process absolutely values the iterative process of building on an idea. So that's one of the reasons that figure eight was so meaningful to me. But the other reason that it touches on to my dance background, I am a kinesthetic learner. I think many of us are. And learning through movement, learning through tinkering and discovery. So that figure eight kind of also harkens back to kinesthetic ways of learning.
So that's great that you were explaining that just in a little more detail what kinesthetic learning is exactly, please.
So, learning by doing. So, for example, the studio model of education, which if any of you have taken an art class, a dance class, photography, it's less about a sage on stage model of learning where it might feel a bit more passive. And a studio model of learning, you're learning as much from your peers in the classroom. You're learning by doing. And that's really what it means when we talk about kinesthetic learning. And that I think is what creates really the muscle memory for retaining things. It's also when you actually fail, that's when you really learn the best. So it's through the tinkering and the problem solving, and just trying it out. If you ever in a biology lab, that's a form of kinesthetic learning. Our chemistry lab, where you get to tinker and try and do in order to learn. So that's what I mean by a kinesthetic way of learning.
Terrific. And we just want to show everyone the website. It's figure8thinking.com, figure8thinking.com. And you can see here that Natalie is a hybrid thinker, comfortably synthesizing creative and analytical thought processes from design and business to arrive at innovative opportunities. That's so cool. So we already have a question from India asking, is that course you designed, is that available online?
It's not. That's a great question. I resigned from the university in 2017. That was around the time that Sree and I met, or maybe we met just after that. And that particular strategic design MBA program got incorporated into the Thomas Jefferson University's traditional MBA. So they incorporated some of those classes. But I'm developing an online creativity course that will have elements of some of the ways that we learned in that course that I'm developing.
And that's very exciting. Let's see where else people are coming from. I'm going to give you another opportunity to go into Twitter, Natalie, and share our video right from Twitter so that everybody can see it. And I'm going to just do a little tour of the world while we do that. We have, let's see who's joining us. So many different people. Sonali is watching from LA. We have two Sonalis back to back. Look, Sonali Chitre and Sonali Chandra are watching back to back. And Pradnya Haldipur is here. She says hello from Silver Spring. She was our guest on our special Mother's Day episode, which was really, really cool to have her with us. Sonali Chitre says, what about the droves of partiers last night on the Upper East Side? Yeah, we've got crazy people everywhere, and really problematic to see folks without masks going out there and doing, just partying or going to bars. I understand how hard it is to be locked in. I have two 17-year-olds who are so kind to us that they are being locked down with us, haven't complained, unlike me, which I've been complaining a lot. And so I understand, but we have to be so careful with what's happening in the world right now. We cannot take this risk, folks. Please be positively careful. And let's see who else is here. Sonali says, I live with my sister and she's a musician dancer. She's very talented, but whenever she practices at home, it disturbs me and I can't concentrate on what I am doing. And that's something that we always think about. Stefan's got to know all about Natalie and her work when I worked with AARP and Life Reimagined. Ooh, the creativity leap. Love it. Right up my alley. You know my hashtag, just create. I'm all about creating all the time. That's awesome, Stefan. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Stefan.
That is really great. And Stefan says, so true. Many just squash creativity when many are so young. We should encourage our children to be as creative as possible. And adults too. I will never stop creating. That's wonderful. Seisha Sai is watching from Bangalore, India. I know you've been to India a couple of times. I don't know if you got to the south.
No, I did not get to Bangalore. I really, really, really still want to visit Madras. And I also still want to visit Goa. I speak Portuguese because I lived in Brazil and Portugal. And several of my friends, Sri Lankan friends, have Portuguese last names because the Portuguese colonized Sri Lanka for a moment. But Goa has a really rich history related to that. But no, have not been to Bangalore.
And so we've got to get you there. And Chennai is where my wife is from. And I'm a son-in-law of Chennai. And nice. Doug is watching from the San Francisco Bay Area. He's at SF Doug on Twitter, SF Doug. And Doug has at DougLevy.com, he has a daily newsletter of what headlines you missed from today. What are the important, accurate information that you need to know about what happened today? So please check him out at DougLevy.com. Also want to make sure that everybody, excuse me, let's talk about the book for a minute. Tell us when it comes out, please.
Yeah, it's coming out on June 23rd. I did a quick Twitter message to Doug, but the book comes out on June 23rd, and everyone is free to visit the website figure8thinking.com and download a free complimentary sample chapter if you so desire, just so you can get a taste of what I discussed in the book. It's a really engaging read, I've been told. It's not too long a book, and gives you a sense of how I hope we all will begin to approach our work differently, so that we get away a bit from what I call the innovation churn. So many of our organizations are trying so hard to build cultures of innovation, and in my opinion, really need to pause and actually start with creativity. We have to hire for creativity. We have to cultivate it once we get folks in, and we have to sustain it and not silo it only in the marketing department or the design department, but figure out how to work more consistently in a collaborative way.
I love that. And here's what Nir Eyal, who is so famous, he's a best-selling author of Hooked and Indistractable. He says, Natalie Nixon's new book provides a fresh primer on how to cultivate creativity in the workplace. How wonderful is that? And he's just, and look at these books that you're in the same category with. Many of these are #1 bestsellers and things like that. Chris Voss's book is really famous. And it's great to see what are the other books you've been read with. And of course, your own book, Strategic Design Thinking, is there. And Think Like a Rocket Scientist, Never Go with Your Gut. There are books that tell you the opposite, right? Some books tell you the exact opposite of one book's title. One might say, so those are things that I was just looking at over there. So that's really cool. And congrats on getting the book in your hand. Let's hold it up one more time. We want everybody to see it. That she got it today. What does that feel like to have that book in your hand? What does that mean? Reflect on it. Reflect also on, where you started and where you are now, that you could have more than one book published and have kind of worldwide acclaim, and you've traveled the world. What does that mean to that young Natalie Nixon, if you could talk to her today?
Oh boy, well, thank you again for just asking that question. It feels a bit surreal in a really happy, joyous way. When these physical copies arrived, I was actually giving a 3-hour design thinking webinar for a client. I've been in a real mode of sharing and giving since the beginning of COVID-19. So I've been collaborating with a number of associations and companies and giving webinars on design thinking, on creativity, on foresight. This happened to be with a client, and as you know, the idea of giving a 3-hour webinar, a workshop on design thinking, how are we going to do that? It actually worked out really well because it was very analog, very hands-on, But I was in the middle of this, and my husband, who's an attorney, he has a very different type of beautiful brain from mine. He ducked into the office, and he was waving this piece of paper, and he was mouthing something to me, and I was getting distracted. And at the next break, I went to him and I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Your books arrived. They arrived." And he had put a bunch of boxes in our garage. And to first hold this, it's like it's a baby for me, and it took a lot of rigor and a lot of wonder to get it to this point. The first book that I've had published is a book that I edited. It's a book called Strategic Design Thinking. And it was a very different experience writing that book, because it was much more like herding feral cats. Because I had contributors who were academics and practitioners. I wanted to be very hybrid in that way. And it was a very different subject, and the publisher was more academic-y. I did not want to go that route this time. This is the first book I've ever, solely authored myself. And it's hard. There's a reason why not everybody writes a book. It's the way I wrote this was, I call it the baby food method. I would have daily word count goals. If my word count goal for the day was 500 words, I would break that down into 5, and I would have 30-minute writing sprints. And some of the best advice I got from a gentleman named Alan Weiss, who I had hired to be my business coach, and he helped me to get to revising a couple of drafts of my book proposal. And he said, whatever you do not self-edit. Because if any of us have ever stared at a blank screen on your laptop as you sit down to write something, there was the negative mini me that sat on this shoulder that would say, as soon as I started to write, no one wants to hear that. That's already been said. That sounds silly, right? All the negative stuff. And on the other side, I had to constantly put the more positive inner voice that said, wow, what an interesting idea. Tell me more, right? So positivity, as I even learned through the writing process, is a mind game. It's something we have to exercise. It's something that comes with practice, with intentionality. It's all about reframing. And for me, that was everything that helped me to suspend judgment on myself, and to expect the best, and just to have this attitude of the young Natalie. I mean, one of the things my parents always commented on about me as a little girl is which just had this incredible enthusiasm and optimism and a bit of impulsiveness, which I still have, to just try something. And that's gotten me to this point.
Well, let's make sure we get some time for some questions from our audience. And I want to just go back to that young girl that you were, and you mentioned that you were called the N word. How do you talk to kids today who are often being bullied for their background, their race, or the way they present to the world? What is your message to them?
The first is, and I know it's harder to do when we're children, but when we are bullied, we have to remember that the best antidote to bullies is to stand up to them. The best antidote is not to shrink back within yourself, but to find some kernel of courage to talk back, to speak up for yourself. And I'll say, one of my first, this might sound silly, but one of my first needs to stand up to a bully was as a first grader. As you remember, I went to a pretty tough urban school in Philly. It wasn't one of the roughest, but it was the kind of environment you had to know how to fight. And I hated fighting. And so I would always make sure I had friends who knew how to fight, who could surround me. Well, in the first grade, there was a girl who now I realize came from a particularly disadvantaged home. And way it came out in her was that she could be really mean. And it was the end of recess one day. We all had to line up in a straight line before we could enter the school building. And she busted in front of me. And she would do that on a regular basis. She would just shove herself physically in front of me. And one day, for whatever reason, I thought to my 6-year-old self, she can't keep doing that to me. And so I tapped her on her shoulder and I said, you busted in front of me in line. And she said, what are you going to do about it? Kick my butt? Because that was the slang we used to use back then. And then she turned her back on me. And being so literal, I went all the way to the back of the line. I took a running start and I kicked her in the butt. And she never messed with me again. And I think even though I hated fighting, I took that exercise of my own right to stand up for myself into that predominantly white environment where I was called really horrible names and words, to speak up for myself. So I would say to any child to remember that no one has the right to call you out of your name or to make you feel poorly about yourself. You must just do an about face and face them with as much courage as you can.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Now here's a question from Twyla Duncan, who is one of our friends. She says, since Natalie experienced being referred to by the N-word, how does she feel when people of color use the N-word today? How does it inform her views on positivity?
You know, I probably don't have a popular feeling. I mean, I have to say that's a really complicated question. That question deserves an answer. It's probably much longer than what we have time for. But as with so many messed up things in American culture, it's when Black people refer to each other in that way, it's a very different context. It's kind of the way you're seeing young women when they call each other the B word, almost as a term of affection. If a guy calls them that, it lands very differently. So I would say context is everything, and so that's how I'll respond to that question.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, and for being so clear. Rose is watching. She's our producer, and she's at Rose Horowitz 31, and she's tweeting live, and she's using the hashtag Sree COVID-19 call. And she says she got many steps today because of gardening in her garden, which is awesome. And look, someone else from Philadelphia, Laura Silverman. Almost bedtime.
I
know Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Oh my God,
yeah,
Laura's amazing.
Thanks.
Laura's awesome. Yeah. What a small world. Yeah. What a small world. Serena Jane is watching, and Serena is watching from Forest Hills, and Serena is known as the Indian Jane Fonda, among many other things. She started teaching Bhangra dancing classes, Masala Bhangra, it's called, 25 years ago.
Wow.
And you, of course, traveled in India, so in that part of the world, so you know Bhangra dancing, but
yes,
this is really special. She has agreed to come on our show, so she's going to be on our show in the next few weeks at some point, so watch for her, and maybe we'll get a little action and a little dancing, a little movement in there, which would be really great. Jonathan Borstein says, genuinely interesting read along, one of the best to date. Pradnya says, good Lord, Natalie Nixon, the most interesting woman in the world. How about that?
Wow, high praise. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And Brown Pundit says, good to be here. Good to have you here. Kavita's watching from New York. And Vandana, our other producer, says hello. And Ashok is watching from Kerala, India. And I know you didn't get to Kerala, but you got to go the next time you go to India. And Sammy's asking, where are you from? And you are from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
I don't know, the line we all know around the world is from the Fresh Prince, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air show, where it says West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, Philly, we are a city of neighborhoods. So he was, there's a reason why he claimed West Philly, which is different from being from South Philly or North Philly. I'm from the Northwest section of Philly. We really love our neighborhoods in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Can I say one thing about your next guest, who's a dancer from India? When I lived in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, I did have the opportunity to take some traditional Sri Lankan dance. And dance is it's like a language. There's different types of dialects, I guess we could say, in dance, whether it's ballet or jazz or African or modern. And one of the things I learned, which was awesome for me, in studying, I didn't study in depth, but I took some classes in traditional Sri Lankan dance. is that it was the use of the head and the eyes, because in Western dance, with the exception of modern, which tends to break that line, but ballet especially is all about this one straight line. Modern dance was heavily influenced by African dance. So you saw much more contractions and laterals and flat backs, and the head could sometimes would often be on a different angle than the spine. But it was when I was really getting to Southeast Asian dance that I really began to appreciate the movement of the head and in the movement of the eyes and the different shapes and angles of the hands, which was so mind-blowing and in an amazing way to me that we just don't use the body in the same way in the West. So I can't wait to tune in and learn from this guest.
Yeah, thank you so much. And folks, we want everybody to follow you, Nat W. Nixon. Everybody, please follow her, Nat W. Nixon. Can I ask you what the W stands for?
Yes, it stands for Weathers, which is my maiden name. When I got married to John, my husband, I adopted his name, Nat Nixon, Natalie Nixon.
Yeah, then it's easier, right? Nat Nixon,
yeah.
Easier. And where is your husband right now?
He is downstairs watching the Michael Jordan documentary. He's a huge sports athlete.
But he's not watching us? What the hell?
Not right now, no.
Okay, so one of the things that we want everybody to do is to follow you and to make sure that you see all the great content she puts out. She's on Instagram, she's on Twitter, she's on Facebook. And we have lots of comments and questions coming in, so let's keep going. Ashok is watching from a cool rainy morning in Kerala, India, which is great. Panya says that actually sounds lovely. And Ashok wanted a link to your book, so we put that on the screen right now, figure8thinking.com. You can go there, you can buy a copy, and you can get a free chapter as well. So you buy a copy now, you pre-order it, but you get the free chapter today. So we want everybody to go and get that free copy and learn from Natalie right away. We'd love to see that. And Twyla likes the phrase strategic design thinking, learning by doing excellent, says Twyla, which is really cool. And Ashok says he took classes on creativity and positive attitude. And Arlene is watching from Inwood in New York City. It's the northernmost neighborhood in Manhattan, just at the, and Ashok says, you're welcome to come to Kerala. And Twyla is drinking bourbon instead of water. And Serena is saying hello. Just so much going on. And look at this. Arlene just ordered my copy on Amazon for her.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. It's awesome.
That's great. Ashok says, use your left hand to increase your creativity.
If you're right,
says, or use your right hand. Sorry?
If you're right-handed, use your left hand. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. All right. And Mark is popped in from Durham, North Carolina. Mark is an amazing friend of our shows. He comes to all of them. He watches all of them. We really appreciate it. And Renee is saying hi to her friend. Folks, tag your friends so they can watch this show later. Just go in there, just tag them or share this on your platform, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And we have someone watching from Baltimore. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Annie Darrow, who's watching from Baltimore on LinkedIn right now. And we love seeing that she's watching from there. Let's see who else is from watching on the show. Gary Zamchik is watching from New Jersey.
Gary.
And
hi, Gary.
You know him.
Yes.
You know him. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining, Gary.
That's great. And speaking of Philadelphia, Steve Taylor, who's on my team at DigiMentors, he is in the LinkedIn and he's saying hello to everyone there. And we want to tell everybody to please let us know if you have a conference that's being canceled or you would like your own talk show like this. Talk to us. We produce these. We're doing dozens a month, and we can help you do that. So don't let your conference get canceled. Contact me, Sree@Sree.net, so that you can participate and you can learn right away how we could help you. So just check out our website and just email me, Sree@Sree.net. We'll send you our production brochure and what we're doing. We're doing a conference, Natalie, for 50,000 teachers.
Amazing.
On May 30th. We're also doing, we just finished a conference for Princeton University, a 3-day conference. We're very proud of the work we're doing. So if anybody needs some help with a virtual event, please contact us. This is our brochure that you can see here, and our company is called DigiMentors. And please contact me. We can help you. We can be 110% of your production or 10% of your production. We can help you, and it will make a difference. So please do get in touch with us, and we'd love to talk to you. Sree at Sree.
I love that.
Yeah,
you're
thank
definitely
you.
the person to go to, Sree.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you. You're very, very kind. Let's get in some more comments, and then we'll go to some more questions as well. Mark says, need to get you on his podcast talking about Creativity Leap. Look at that. You're getting booked.
I love that.
Tirth says, you are an inspiration. How lovely. That is so cool.
Thank you.
And so Twyla and our friend Ashok are debating whether the hand thing is really true, how much you can be more creative if you use the other part of your brain. So they're talking about that and discussing it. And let's see who else is here. Rose says, hi, Nat Nixon, excited to hear about your book about creativity. Love to write, paint, and garden. Kavita says, my granddaughter gave a speech on anti-bullying in school. It made me feel so proud of her. Every school should do this talk about not to bully anyone, regardless. I really loved it. She got a lot of cheers and claps. That's awesome. And Arlene says she spent a lot of time in Philly and at Joe Frazier's gym because she had to work around boxing. She's a sports writer, among many other things. And Arlene's also a very positive, upbeat person. So I love talking to her. And Steve says Philly in the house. Awesome. And Gulshan says, Gulshan wants you to promote his channel. You notice how other people are inviting you to promote your work, and then someone comes in and says, promote his work. Yes. And that's all good. This is all, we're all promoting each other's work. Ashok says the Kerala dance of Kathakali and Mohiniyattam use the eyes and body. They're very, very special when they do that. And and Steve is representing the Lower Moya Mensing neighborhood. What is that?
Nice. Moya Mensing, is that on edge of northeast North Philly, Steve? I might be botching that, but it's in Philly.
Okay. And Nitin is watching from one of the most positive places in the world, despite a lot of problems. And that's the town of Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama lives. And you can imagine an entire town of refugees from Tibet who went there, more than 45, 50 years ago, and generations have been born and lived there. It is still a very positive place despite the pain of exile. And we have so much to learn from people who don't complain about the lives that they lead compared to us complaining about very little, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. I often think about my ancestors in the United States, the people who were enslaved, and we often talk about how they really were exercising foresight every single day of their lives to not focus only on the horrors of the present day through slavery, but to really invest so much in their children and to be able to have the fortitude to live on for the next day and days that they would never even see. So that, I think that's just that the people in India who you just referred to and in my own history, those where there's so many examples of people who are able to see beyond what is presently before them. It's a really important life skill.
Yeah, I completely agree. By the way, they're still discussing lefty versus righty on there. So that's going on. And Carla's watching from Florida. She says she got here late, but she'll catch the beginning tomorrow. That's the beauty of this, that you can watch right away after this is over. Rose and Vandana are posting all kinds of links and they're tweeting. So everybody follow them on Twitter, please. Chetan says, thank you. Angela's representing Long Island. And that's really cool. And Kavita says, is the double voice on? Oh, so she's hearing some extra sounds. And Steve says Deep South Philly, that is. Mo.
Thank you for clarifying, Steve.
That's great. And if anyone is, one of the things, I love the way we're able to do this programming on multiple channels. So if you have trouble on one network, you can always go to another. That's where on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And this is episode number 67. We've been live for 67 straight days. It's kind of hard to imagine. So I want to ask you, how have you remained positive given everything that's happening in the world?
Me?
Yes.
I've remained positive in a couple of ways. I'm just trying to tweet something on Twitter.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
No, for me, a couple of ways. One is I mentioned that kinesthetic nature that I have. Philly is a city where we have 10x the amount of public green space as Central Park. So you can live in the hood and you can live in a really tony neighborhood and have access to streams and creeks and trails. And so we live across the street from a woods, and we're in the city of Philadelphia. I go on a walk on a daily basis. I also I do timed daydreams. So I make myself take breaks and pauses regularly. I'm used to working from home because I have a home office. So even before COVID-19, I was doing that. But one of the ways that I build out my ability to let my mind wander, to give things a break, to get perspective, to zoom out, is to daydream. I'm a very good daydreamer ever since I was a little kid, and I make sure that as an adult, I do that too. I also think it's important that we redesign our relationship with time. So many of us have been feeling like this is a series of Groundhog Days. And so one of the rituals that I have designed for myself is maybe with the exception of tonight, but I try to get to bed every night by 10 p.m. So between 9:30 and 10, which is new for me because I love Netflix and binge watching television, but I'm really editing that a lot and falling asleep by 10 p.m., getting up at 6 a.m., not hitting snooze. And between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., I do my ablutions and hygiene and prayer, meditation, journaling, and then a 15-minute long stretch of my body. So physical stretching. So it's that kind of mind, body, spirit ritual that I'm doing every single morning, so that when I sit down at my desk at 7 a.m., I feel so peaceful and ready to go. And I think the most important thing about my ritual is that it's a promise that I'm keeping to myself. And I'm tomorrow will probably be around day 15 or so of this.
Oh, wow. So maybe some of us can take some notes and follow up on this. So
well, create your own ritual, your own, whatever makes sense for you.
And talk about the timed daydreaming. How does that work exactly?
For me, so I literally take my smartphone and I put a timer on for 5 minutes, and I will either, if it's cold, then I'll just stand by the window. Clouds are an amazing anchor for daydreaming because they just have this nice drift and pace to them. Again, because I'm from Philly, we have a big front steps and stoop culture. So I sit outside on the steps, especially in this nice weather, and I will just look at, we have beautiful irises growing by our front steps. I'll look at the irises. I will look at the clouds. And it's amazing what it does for your mind. If you were deep into a muckety problem or something that just wasn't clicking for you, walk away for a bit. And sometimes there's some days I can only afford 5 minutes, and that's okay. But creativity loves constraints. So constraints on time, constraints on financial resources, constraints on people talent. Even though this is a very challenging chapter with COVID-19, it is a chapter and we will move through it. But days like these are designed for creativity. It's actually during times of incredible constraint when we find ourselves truly innovating, because creativity is the engine for innovation. So daydreaming for me, I don't just do it willy-nilly. I'm very intentional about it, and try it. Just try an experiment. Try 5 days in a row this week doing at least one 5-minute timed daydream every day.
Wow, that's really something new for so many people. Our friend Daryl's watching from Richmond Hills in Queens, and he says music is what is similar to him as daydreaming is for you. So that's great. Let's, as we start to wrap up here, some quick tips on creativity. What are things that what are your go-to things that we can borrow from you?
Well, I like to give tips for wonder and tips for rigor, since I define creativity as our ability to toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems. One tip is to go on a listening tour. Think about who are your wonder mentors and your rigor mentors. In other words, who do you look up to, who you see exhibits wonder in their life and work? And here's how I define wonder. Wonder is about awe. It's about audacity. It's about asking big blue sky what if questions. Sometimes your wonder mentor may be no longer in this world with us. It may be someone from history. Read up on them. See what you can learn about their life, how they practice, what was a day in the life like for them. If they're a person who's living and you can access them, even if you're not someone who you know immediately, figure out the 5 degrees of separation and see if you can have a Zoom call with them. Same with rigor. Rigor is about deep focus, incessant practice, incredible discipline, time on task. Leonardo da Vinci said that every obstacle can be destroyed through rigor. So going on a listening tour means setting up a time to have a conversation with someone when you are asking questions and doing a minimal of talking, just listening, taking in advice, stories, anecdotes, and figure out what of those ideas you can incorporate into your own life. Designing a new ritual is also super important. Giving yourself rigor sprints. So when I described, the writing process for me, those times of turning off my phone, writing for 30 minutes straight, that would be an example of a rigor sprint. But just on a consistent basis, carving out space and time so that you allow yourself to do the big, audacious, dreamy work. The dreaming is super, super important, and also carving out the space and time for the rigor work. Your physical environment and space really, really matters. I have on my shelf, I guess I have to look this way, behind me, this is a very sentimental shelf for me. This is a black and white photograph that I took of a tree in the Maldives. So when I lived in Sri Lanka, I had the opportunity to go to the Maldives several times. And then more importantly, I actually developed that black and white photograph. This blue clay bowl was the gift for a speaking event that I did. These 2 shells are from Mexico. 2 women on the beach, Mexican women, gave those to me. Time, again, is a constraint for creativity. So create space and time that anchors you into what wonder and rigor mean for you.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Let's see. Kavita says, today I was watching clouds drift. So peaceful hearing different birds tweet different music. That's lovely.
Yes.
And Daryl says, I always think of Obama when I hear the word audacity.
Nice. Listen,
Kavita says,
he didn't get to where he is without a lot of audacious thinking and action.
Yeah. Kavita says, I access my old friends and laugh at all the silly things of the past. And Steve says, rigor sprint. Yes, I like that. That's really cool. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, let's talk about the book itself. What do they get in the free chapter, and what do they get in the rest of the book? Why should I buy this book today? Should I pre-order it? I want to go to figure8thinking.com,
yes,
and you see that right on the screen, and get a free chapter. Why should I do that?
Well, you should buy the book if you want practical tips on how to exercise and amplify creativity on a personal level, but also for your teams, for your organization. This book is meant, we forget that our organizations are organisms. They're made up of people. So this work is inside out work. So at the end of each chapter, you will read a tip on how, starting this very single day, or if you want to wait till tomorrow, what to start doing as a tip to exercise to make a creativity leap on an individual level and on an organizational level, right? Because again, the subtitle is Unleashing Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work, right? So this is really a book tied into the future of work. If you go to figure8thinking.com and you click the very top banner, you will be opting into receiving the Ever Wonder newsletter, and you'll receive a sample chapter. And the benefits of the sample chapter, it's the introduction and chapter 1, and you're going to get a really cool diagram and the introductory ideas behind how I'm defining creativity and ways that you can start integrating these ideas into your work and into your life.
That's really cool. So tell me about this summer, how you're thinking about the summer. In many cities like ours, it's not really clear when things are going to change. How will you decide? You are a world traveler. You're, as an author, you would have been doing a lot of books tour things. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I was supposed to be in Slovenia this month, and that's turned into a digital conference. So by the way, if you're interested in tuning to anyone in the audience, it's called the Podium Conference. P as in Peter, ODIM. And I'm speaking, actually this week, I'm speaking for the Podium Conference digitally, virtually. I was also supposed to be in Bulgaria. So I won't physically be there, but I like, even on Saturday, I met up with some friends. We practiced the physical distancing, but we went on a long bike ride. So I'm going to remain. There we go. There's the Podium Conference. Yes. So I'm participating in that conference, which is from my friends in Slovenia. Really cool roster of speakers and startup entrepreneurs in the tech space as well. But this summer, I will be, amplifying the words and lessons about the creativity leap, helping organizations, helping my clients. I will be launching this online creativity course. If you keep in touch with me, if you register for the newsletter, you'll get first dibs on that course, and continuing to be on podcasts and speaking in all sorts of virtual events about the creativity leap. And of course, because I'm in Philly, going to the Jersey Shore whenever the governors allow us to dip my toes into the ocean, because I love the water.
Yeah, I can imagine that you must be missing that, as we all are missing that right now.
Yes.
In terms of the work you're doing, is there one thing that you wish, as you look at your career, there's one thing you see at one point where you ended up where you are today and the immense success that you are because of one thing, that kind of a fork in the road perhaps, and you ever think there was something else you could have done? Maybe it was at another juncture that you regret.
You know what? I think, that Proust interview they do at the back of Vanity Fair magazine, they ask the string of questions, and, one of the,
70
questions. Sorry?
70 questions.
Yeah,
70 questions.
I think the worst emotion in the world is regret. And I really can happily say I do not have any regrets. Even the most difficult things I've been through in my life, I am who I am today because of those things. And I would say the most pivotal conversation I had that has dictated the way I am today, the type of woman I am, my attitude, being able to build this business, is because as a sophomore in college, I called home in tears with what I now call a first world problem. I had to declare a major. I didn't want to disappoint my parents. They had sacrificed so much for our education. I wanted to make sure I got a great job at the end of these very wonderful but 4 expensive years of education. And I called home crying. I said, I don't know what to major. And they said, well, what are you enjoying? And I started rattling off the stuff I didn't like. And they said, what do you like? And I started to very apologetically reference anthropology classes and these courses in Africana studies. And at the same time, my parents said, that's what you should study. And I said, wait, you mean you're okay if I do like a double major in anthropology and Africana studies? And they said, yes. And my father said, if you study what you love, if you're okay if I do like a double major, you will have to turn down opportunities. And it was like this weight lifted off me. And when my parents gave me the permission to follow my heart, to not feel like I had to be super practical and do what sounded impressive on the outside, it was worth its weight in gold, because my father was right. I've had to turn away opportunities. When you do what you love, you have an energy about you that attracts people to you. You show up to work extra early, you go home later, you just you show up very differently. So that conversation has meant everything, all the other forks in the road that I've gotten to in my life.
That's what a way to think about that. I think that's great. Steve says he just ordered the book, and he's put in a link to the Google
Thank you,
link.
Steve.
So that's great. He just did the pre-order. Kavita says, watch sunset from any angle, different shades of color, keep changing. 15 minutes of beauty in the sky every day. I'm more of a sunrise person. I think everybody chases sunsets, but I love chasing sunrises. And I'm also an early morning person these days, so I can do that. But before you go, I wanted to show you something that you may not even remember. Something that we did together a few years ago now, and we're going to pull this up. This was 4 years ago, and this was Central Park. And since you mentioned parks, and folks, this is my guest, Natalie Nixon. She's Nat W Nixon on Twitter, Instagram, etc. And 4 years ago, she was a professor, and we had it says there, Natalie Weathers Nixon. I'd even forgotten that. And by the way, Daryl, who's watching now, I went back and found his comment. He said that was the best Facebook Live I had done yet. And there he is today, 4 years later. He might not even remember having seen this. So now I'm going to remind everybody, if they saw it that day, what we were doing. So let's turn up the volume.
Everyone, welcome to yet another Facebook Live session that I'm hosting here in New York. We're live from Central Park. Say hello to everybody. Hi, I'm just coming from the Met and walking down Fifth Avenue. This is the world famous Fifth Avenue here. We'll give you a shot of it in a second. And I'm sharing a conversation with one of the more interesting people I know. So please say hi here to Professor Natalie Nixon. And this professor is visiting from Philadelphia. She is a professor of strategic design, and she's director of the Strategic Design MBA program at Philadelphia University. And she's going to tell us all about her work. And we're going to chat as we walk through here. And you're going to tell us where you are and where you're watching from. And you're going to ask questions. She's lived in 2 war-torn countries. She has done such interesting work. Her background is in fashion and anthropology. And we're just going to have a little chat as we walk around with a few dozen of our friends as we walk and talk here. Lisa is watching from Delaware, which isn't too far from Philadelphia.
All right, so you get the idea. That was amazing.
So cool, Sree.
Yeah, 4 years ago, and you've had career changes since then. As have I. I was at the Met, and in fact, that was just shortly before I got laid off from the Met in a budget issue that they had. And one of the things I learned is the importance of positivity. That people will help you, but they have to find that you are really committed and that you're doing interesting things. People want to help you is certainly one of the things that we know for sure. So everybody, you can find that if you just search Natalie Nixon and my name on Facebook, you can find that. And we walked through the park, and it was just so much fun to do that, Natalie. Thank you. And that was so early in the live streaming days, and it was we walked through the park. We walked through all the park. And it was great. Look at all these people buying copies of the book.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Rose just purchased the book. And my mom is watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. Thank you for watching.
Hi, Mom.
You can say hi to Mama, too. And Stefan says, I remember the Sree walk with Natalie. It was awesome. Sree NYC walks. I love walking, but I don't get out much these days. And Kavita says, I wake up late. Yes, different people have different schedules on what they do. And we're just so grateful for this community and everybody here. And Steve says, speaking of Central Park, here's a video I made on the way to Sree's apartment. So you can all check that out in Facebook. And Steve says what you said, because you both took shots at New York City. You said that you have more parks, and Philly has 352 parks and rec centers. That is more than all 5 boroughs of New York City combined. Just saying, he says. And you said there's more than Central Park also, which is pretty amazing. And Steve is with the Philadelphia Parks Alliance, and they do some amazing live streams every day, almost every day. And you can check out his meditation program tomorrow. So follow Steve on Twitter. He's Steve Derive, Derive on Twitter. And you can connect with him. So we got to let you go. You said you get to bed by 10. It's already 10:15.
I know.
We are so grateful Absolutely. Leave us with a final word, please.
My final word is first, much gratitude to you, Sree, for inviting me to join you and all of your fans. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And my final word of encouragement is make a creativity leap and stay buoyant.
Love that. And look at this. Rose says, my mother is my most faithful viewer. Thank you, Mom. And thank you, Rose, for noticing. And Rose has worked with me for 67 days in a row, which is amazing. Thanks, Natalie. Anand says, you're very stylish. So I like that. And Kavita says, thanks, Rose, Vandana, and Sree, for brightening up these sad days. They are indeed sad. But, you know, one of the things that I did a humor episode very early and people were kind of surprised. And I said, that if you got to laugh a little bit, otherwise you'll cry all day, because that's right. How tragic things are. And I am worried about what's coming ahead, as you can imagine, with all the issues coming with the second wave and all of that. So I've got some wrap up to do. I've got to tell everybody about my free course that everybody can join. And also you're going to, actually Steve Taylor is going to make a cameo appearance in our ad, because he took one of the sponsors' courses, and so you'll see that in just a minute. Arlene says, great conversation. And you know what? I'm going to offer to everybody, when Nat comes to New York sometime in the next several months, we'll gather everybody together, especially those of you who bought a copy of the book early. Let us know that you did, and we'll all get together with Natalie. How about that?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sree. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. And thank you to Natalie Nixon. We're just so grateful to her for being with us on a Sunday night. And Sunday Night Positivity, we're looking for speakers, we're looking for guests, we're looking for topics, and we're looking for sponsors. So speaking of sponsors, let's get right to our sponsors. We're sponsored by 2 courses. There's so many online courses. So we're going to first tell you about my course that's coming up. And it's coming up in June. It's a free Fundamentals of Social Media course that you can sign up for right now, and it's available starting in June. Just go to the website mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social, and the hashtag is MRA Social, and it's a free certification course that Linda Bernstein and I are putting together for Muckrack Academy. I've joined Muckrack as an advisor, and I'm very pleased to offer this. With everything going on in the world, we wanted to offer something free that people can use to upskill, to learn. And everyone, please tell your friends so that they can join us. mrac.co/social. All ages, all experiences, all professions are welcome. And I'm putting in a lot of work for you to take advantage of this free certification course. So please join us if you can. We're very grateful. Also, big thanks to Sohn Social Media Solutions, Tim Sohn, and the Survive with Live Video Bootcamp. Starting June 1st, launch your own consistent live streamed show in just 8 weeks. Please sign up today. Sohn Social Media Solutions is the website, and here is a testimonial.
Hi, my name is Steve Taylor, and I have had the pleasure of being part of Tim Sohn's first Survive with Live Video course. I had very high expectations for the course because I had taken a previous workshop with Tim on social media, and that was an excellent experience. And my high expectations have even been exceeded. I certainly knew that I'd be getting great tech tips, great guidance as to equipment and online tools and all the other processes and steps necessary to create live video. What I've also been very happy to learn is more of this process of thinking through, planning through a broadcast before you even go live, creating a show from scratch, looking at what one's market is and designing a show to be perfect for that market. I've had the opportunity since starting the show to work on several live shows, and the information, the connections that I've made in the Survive with Live Video class and community have been invaluable in really helping me to refine my live streaming. I would highly recommend Survive with Live Video for anyone who's going to be doing any sort of live video broadcasting.
Wow, nice ad. Sohn Social Media Solutions, SOHN socialmediasolutions.com. Check it out. And I just want to show you a last couple of nice comments that have come in from folks, people watching. Arlene said, great conversation. Jonathan Borstein, who's watched 67 straight episodes, says, enjoyable show, thank you, but I'm ambidextrous. Now what do I do? And Kavita says, you have a permanent smile. like that. I maybe she's talking about me, maybe she's talking about Natalie. Both of us seem to have that. Steve was repping Philly, and Waleed says hi, and Martin says, great goal, Sree. Plan to gather your COVID followers. This terrible virus brought us together. You're introducing us to many very smart and interesting people. We will do this every day, Martin. Thank you. And I want to have you on the show to hear about all the great work you're doing. And Mark says, you're doing amazing things as always. Thank you. So kind. And Natalie says, thank you for having me. So much fun. Mark is a lefty too. Yes, lefties. Both my uncles were lefties. And now we are carrying on with this conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please follow me on Twitter at Sree. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are all SreeNet. Please connect with me on those channels, especially on YouTube. I'm trying to build my YouTube, trying to learn on YouTube, so please connect with me there. And yesterday we had a fabulous free tutorial on design. All of that you can find by going into my archives, youtube.com/SreeNet. And by the way, if any of you are on WhatsApp, I have for you this WhatsApp alert link. So all you do is use your QR code reader. If you have an iPhone, just point your iPhone. Or if you have Android, then point the Google app at it, and you will get an alert. Not joining a Facebook group. I'm not adding you to another Facebook group. This is just an alert when I am live. So hope you will check that out. I appreciate you very much. I appreciate everybody who has joined us in this journey. Sree at Sree.net, looking for ideas, topics, guests, sponsors. And thank you to Scroll.in, one of India's best news, information, and culture and analysis websites for simulcasting these shows. We are on their amazing platforms. Check out Scroll.in. And we have some amazing guests coming up in the next few days and weeks. Please stay tuned and check back with us on a regular basis. With that, we will say goodbye. Thank you very much. I'm so grateful to everybody. Bye.